Good morning, everyone. Well, welcome to this morning's Adult Forum. As Pastor Jay said at the beginning of worship with announcements, our focus today is going to be on the subject of mental health in the community, specifically dealing with our youth. Something that we identified in our strategic plan to work on during the next few years. And so this is an opportunity for you to hear from folks who are really in the trenches dealing with this issue. And so we have two individuals who are going to speak about what we are trying to do in Mankato on the subject of mental health in youth. Barb Kaus, who is the executive director of the Greater Mankato Area United Way. And we've had Barb here before to talk in general about the efforts of United Way, so you're familiar with that. Today, you're going to hear a much more specific focus in terms of what's happened in the last year and a half and 2 years. Her sidekick, who's going to provide support, is Sandy Hazy, and I know Sandy from way back in teaching in Mankato, because Sandy is a retired elementary FIAD teacher, but I've learned that she has decided that she didn't get enough of it when she was regularly working, so she comes back and subs. And I think that'd be kind of fun to go into the gym and do all of those cool activities.
That's the only place I go. I do all the other things, you know.
Oh, okay.
I know, right?
So Sandy is here in her capacity as a member of the United Way task force or committee that was formed at Barb's instigation here to kind of coordinate the efforts dealing with mental health in youth. So I'm going to turn it over to them. I want you to know that we are filming this and hopefully that this works effectively so that we can then put it online for your friends who are not able to make it today so that they can see this. This is kind of chapter 1 in terms of how we're addressing the mental health issue. In November, we will have Thad Schunkweiler, who is the director of the Blue Cross Center for Rural Health and up at Mankato State University. And so he's going to be talking about how mental health issues are challenging the rural communities. And we hope to continue following up with mental health initiatives. So without any further delay, here's Barb.
Thanks, Bob. What a wonderful member you have, right, Mr. Eyrig? Okay, first of all, I want to tell you a little bit about United Way and the area that we're responsible for, and then our focus, of course, of the youth mental health. So United Way, the reason we gave you the pledge form for the backside to look at all the information that's on that, we are still responsible for our 4-county area, Blue Earth, Nicollet, Le Sueur, and Waseca counties. And that means we're in charge of making sure we're improving the lives of those in need. It's our responsibility to do that and have the holistic look, not a singular look. That means looking at all of the needs that someone has to have in order to get out of what we call the bucket of need. And that means they need many, many more than one area of help. They need probably about 13 areas on an average of help to get out of that, a whole family unit, for sure. So you see all the towns that are listed there. So we're working right now on really just embracing what's going on with all of mental health. And so the middle section, every one of those agencies and programs, so the agencies are listed in the bold print alphabetically, and then the programs inside those agencies are listed in the non-bold, where your donations go directly to. And we're doing that. We have 62 programs this year, which is 7 more than last year. And the reason for that, the need is growing. As we know, that the pressure that's out there, the economy the way it is, individuals who live paycheck to paycheck no longer can. They're trying to find out ways how to survive, how to keep their family going. And along with that comes stresses. Comes depression, comes anxiety, comes all sorts of pieces. So it's not just the youth that's suffering, it's all ages that are. But right now, today, we're going to continue to focus on the youth. But all of these touch mental health somehow, because it's all about how we feel, right? We go to the doctor when we break our arm. We go to the doctor like I did last week when I needed a cap put on my tooth. And we do all sorts of things like that, right? Because of the pain that's there. But because of the stigma, very few seek out when their brain is hurting. And that's the most important place for us to seek out for help, is how we're feeling. Because that determines what we're going to do in our day, our thought process, and how we're going to feel about ourselves. So it's very, very important. And then in that little part down there, it says examples of our convening and connecting. So we're not only the powerhouse of trying to raise funds to make sure these beautiful agencies and programs can do the hands-on work, but we're out there looking for the gaps within our communities that need a light shine on them. I'm not showing a campaign video today, but Bob has the link for you to go out and watch it. It's a very direct, and it's about families that have been affected by either by death by suicide or death by overdose. And those are some really, really tough things, as you can see, all the different things that we're working on. So I do invite you to watch that. The agencies and programs fall into what we call basic needs, education, and health, and that's why I gave you this. Now, all of those that were on the back of that pink form are falling through one of these pillars. So we make sure that the dollars are spent wisely, and that's a part of what we're going to talk about this morning, where the dollars are going, what topics do we need to put our arms around, what issues are out there besides these beautiful agencies. Hello, good morning. Nice to see you. And so we have people like Bob and others that break out through all of these. There's about 90 of them every spring that review where your dollars are going to go and how much of your dollars are going to go there. And then when we campaign in the fall, like I'm doing right now, is to try to hit that. Okay, so I'm going to go into those topics for you, and you can ask questions whenever you'd like to. We know, or maybe we don't know, but the number one issue we have is mental health. It's the number one issue throughout the whole United States and the world, I would say. We need to get rid of the stigma. Before COVID, it still was number one. I could see it escalating. I could see the waiting list, for individuals to get in to seek help was expanding. And then COVID came, and boy, that deepened and broadened it. And it was like a huge amount from all different ages that couldn't get in. We didn't have enough providers out there because of all of the things that were going on that were added into our coping of our lives and how we navigate with that affecting us. Our children are struggling more than ever, to say the least. It is horrific. I'll use that word, and I say it, that's probably on the light end of saying a word for it, but they're struggling horribly in school. They're struggling horribly outside of school. And it's any child. It's not the most needy of the needy. It's every child is struggling, along with, of course, the adults. So in that, I wanted to learn more what was going on, and so I did some more research. And so the mental health is the leading cause of disability and poor life outcomes for youth. So think of that again, disability and poor outcomes. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for youth from ages 10 to 24. Number one is accidents. Thoughts of self-harm and suicide are higher than ever in their little minds. And this goes even, we have it, numbers showing it's in preschool. That's very, very saddening, isn't it? And little kindergartners, first grade, just put yourself in those dear grandchildren. 8% have actually attempted, according to the 2022 Minnesota Student Survey. 4 to 6 to 1 year wait is what it was. Months to get outside therapy. Youth mental health, we brought our group together, and I'm going to go into our committee. And so we had groups that were getting together on mental health overall. And then in that, what that means is we convene the public. And so that would be the city, the county, the school district, law enforcement, citizens, survivor of a loss, attempt of suicide, and all sorts of areas of it. And so we wanted to just find out what can we do to help. And what came up over and over and over was the youth. And we had social workers, and we had counselor in there from the District 77. And they said, oh my gosh, there's so many children that need help. We're not able to touch them all. We need help in doing that. And I said, well, what does that mean? They said, we need a navigator. I said, okay, help me understand, what is a navigator? Because the paperwork is so difficult. no matter what degree of education you have, it doesn't matter. We found that it's people with the doctorates are having a hard time getting their children connected. Is filling out the paperwork, meeting with the child, making sure they get to the appointment, following up afterwards, and all those processes, and then knowing where to have that child get connected. Who is going to see children? Not very many providers see children. And where is this child at? And what needs do they need connected to for help? And there's different levels of that out there too. So as I heard that, it was just heartbreaking, just as it is for all of you just hearing what you heard right now. And we said, okay, now what do we do? And they go, well, we just need help with that. If we could see the children that we need to see. Free up our time, we'd be able to do more of what we need to be doing. And they said there's so many children that are falling into this that we're not even able to see any of them, most of them. And so they are seeing some, but they can't see them all the way through. And there's children that they're not even seeing at all. And hearing that, of course, broke my heart, and not being able to sleep knowing that there's children that thinking that their lives don't matter, they're not worth living, and they do, and we need to give them hope. So through that, learning that more and more, and it's not because the social workers didn't want to, or the counselors, it's because they did. They spoke up and they shared, and they spoke up to the right group to say that what they needed to make sure those little ones that they care so deeply about can be connected to the services so their lives are safe. So in that, it was a great, committee there. We were working on it hard, and so we decided to branch out to a committee called Youth Mental Health and do more direct on that besides the overall mental health. And so in that, we approached then District 77, and we knew that we needed a large outcome of results. And so the committee got together and we decided to do that. So I reached out to Paul Peterson as superintendent of District 77, besides superintendents in the 4-county area that you can see that we're responsible for: Blue Earth, Nicollet, Le Sueur, and Waseca counties. And I met with Paul, and we met and we talked about what would this cost? What do you need to get this implemented? And this would have been like in November. And they said the dollar amount, and then we worked hard on that. And then January we met, I said we have the funds, so let's get started. And then we were able to start interviewing in February, and an individual was hired April 1st. So there's some statistics that I want to share in regards to that. And then there's another piece to this, which would be the hub. I want Sandy to share some things and what she's seen in the schools. So when we went through the piece of figuring out where the kids were at and what we needed to do, get the person hired, we thought, okay, now let's start where? Let's go upstream. Well, what is upstream? Well, upstream is trying to get at the beginning. What's the cause of the cause? As far as up as you can. Now, the majority of our agencies we support and programs are midstream, what they call, or downstream. Those are very, very important because people are right there, they're there now, and they need the help. So we need to continue to support all those. But what we have to stop is the volume that's getting to those, because it's expanding every day. And before we know it, we can't continue to have more and more and more nonprofits in those areas, right? And then have the need keep going and going and going. And then eventually we're not gonna we can't even keep up with it now, let alone we have more and more people falling there. So that's why we need to take our vision higher up to say, how do we eliminate individuals falling into that? So for this, how do we eliminate youth falling into those areas? Then how do we get them help before they choose to attempt or they're successful, death by suicide? So what we did then is we went, like I said, to District 77, found them out, got the person hired, and the outcomes were very, very good. We ended up having, it was over 100, about 130 referrals that were made in District 77 over a year's time. And so that means that they were referred, our navigator got to meet with the parent and them, and then they were able to get them connected. So they connected over 100 students to mental health services. Patrick Clark is his name, did, and I was hoping he could be here today, but he couldn't make it. And provided case management for 83 of the students. That's a really powerful number, isn't it? The Youth Mental Health Navigator is an efficient referral process by networking and consulting with community-based professionals who may provide potential mental health services to students and their families. We've even found that there's parents, now that they're in a situation, or guardians, they need help too, trying to navigate through. Never imagine that their child would ever need help. Their child has all these things that are going for them. They're thinking, it can't be my child. It can't be my granddaughter, or whoever it might be. Additionally, school staff have more time to provide direct services to students in school rather than spending time on paperwork and coordination of services for students out of school. So what we found is that when they're connected to the navigator, they are pretty much a confirmed visit. So what I mean by that is that the providers out there aren't going to have just an open time because someone doesn't show up because of the difficulty to get there. They are going. And so now the navigator has such a beautiful relationship with all of the providers and all the new ones coming on board. And they look, when they get that call, they know that someone's going to show up, but also they know that that person's well prepared and their child is to come for the services. So it's a win-win there, right? And then based on the success of the pilot, we are expanding it. We have by 3 positions. So we looked at all those outcomes I just shared with you. The average wait now was 1 month versus the 3 to 6 to 1 year, possibly. That's just way too long, isn't it, to get them out there? So now it's average is 1 month. So we have 2 positions now in District 77, and we've decided to go upstream, right, what we just talked about. So we decided that we're gonna start in kindergarten, and we did. So that full year was kindergarten. Right now it's kindergarten. All 10 elementary schools in District 77, there are 2 navigators that are taking care of them. They're split 5 by 5. It's very powerful what's happening within that. And then now we have 2 additional navigators that we're able to raise the funds for the surrounding areas. And we're very thankful for South Central Service Co-op to serve the school districts in Greater Mankato Area United Way. So that means Waseca. That means St. Peter. That means Lake Crystal, St. Clair, Janesville, all the way around. All of those schools are under our responsibility. Nicollet, all now have a navigator, and most of those schools are K through 12. So now there's junior high that are being helped, and senior high, and even the District 77. If there's someone that would reach out to one of our elementary navigators, they're there helping. If there's a crisis that's happening at one of the other schools, they're brought into that. So right now, just to give you an idea, since September started, since the beginning of the school year, which would be right after Labor Day, right? The Youth Mental Health Navigators, this is now the 4 of them that are out there. We began in 1, so we gained by 3. We received 87 referrals. That's about a month, only 4 weeks. And look what we did in 1 year prior to that, which was an awesome number itself. But now we have the power out there, and now we have 87 referrals. Provided resources to 50 families, connected 30 youth with the mental health services, of which 18 youth have already started. Boy, we don't move slow, do we? Once we know that there's an issue, and that's just the way your United Way does. We see an issue, we embrace it, and even though there's a stigma on it, even though there's people who don't want to bring it out from underneath the rug and shine a light on it, we do, because it's saving lives, and that's what we're about, saving and improving lives. So now I wanted to have Sandy share another part of our group, and she's great in sharing this. She'll share a little bit about what she's seen in the school system herself, but she's going to go into what called our hub that we have, Portal Hub. So one of the other things that came up in our meeting is that parents don't know where to go. They're in a crisis at night. What are they going to do? And you heard about Thad Schrumpweiler a little bit earlier, right? With MSU, the behavioral health. We're connected to that in regards to creating a hub for parents.
Thanks, Barb. So, yeah, I'm a retired teacher in District 77. Probably been a colleague to Jack and to Bob, and they were a great influence on our sons. So I taught middle school for 30 years here in the district, and I currently now do fill in as a substitute or just a couple long-term positions. But when I heard about that there was going to be a suicide prevention committee forming, I happened to speak with one of the district or our our psychologist in town, and she was telling me about it, and I said, boy, that's something I'd really like to be involved in. I've seen so much with young people through the years. So consequently, I got invited on board. And what I've seen, like for example, last year I did 2 long-term maternity leaves at Prairie Winds, and I can't tell you what it's like to have, I had 20 students at that conference, and out of those 20, I had 4 parents say to me, well, my son or daughter deals with anxiety really bad. So I don't know, some days they're gonna wanna come to school, some days they're not, and when they're here, there may be days that they just need to call me and go home. It's very real. It's very real. And yes, as Barb indicated, it's become more real since COVID. And at the time, it was like, as an educator throughout my time, and I know Bob and Jack can attest to this, when you had a student that you saw was struggling, I never knew, like it as a homeroom advisor, where do I turn those parents to? Where do I go? Yeah, there's, you can call and try to get an appointment with a psychologist, but they're booked, they're full. So, through our large group committee, we have formed what's called a parent hub. And it is a plethora of resources that is going to be online, MSU partnered, and they're basically the website offer for us. And it's going to launch end of this month or 1st of November. Parents are going to get like a QR code and they can go to it. And we're also trying to be very sensitive, because that's one of my pet peeves, is that we need to make sure that it is culturally inclusive, so that parents, because different cultures have different expectations, they have different values on mental health and what's okay and how you reach out and what you do. And so we've really looked to address that as well. And parents are going to be able to access this, and they can go as shallow or as deep as they want. And it's going to help them to, so Barb is my daughter, and 3 a.m, she comes in and she's in a full-blown panic attack. I can't breathe, Mom, I can't breathe, I'm not going to go to school, I don't want to, okay? What do I do? Now parents are going to be able to go to that website, and either in the moment or before or after the moment, and look at what are the things that I should have been able to say to her to help, okay? Or who can I call? One of the things that we discovered in one of the meetings, I was sitting at the table, and I know that my colleagues will appreciate this, a magnet got laid down and it had a mobile crisis number. And I was like, well, what is this? And it's a number that I didn't even realize as a teacher. I was like, I would love to have had that number when a parent emails me at night or a student emails me. Oh, we have a mobile crisis center right here in town that is under our umbrella, okay? And you can call them 24/7. And they will go out to your home, they will go out, they will drive to rural communities. And if you yourself are struggling, or a child of yours is struggling, they're there. And I was like, wow. So we got magnets from them, and those are at every building. One magnet was placed not in parents' hands, but in every teacher's hand. So that when a kid or a student reaches out to you or a parent, you can give them that number. So with this resource hub, there are going to be so many things on there, and we've had psychologists from both Mankato Clinic, Mayo Clinic, and Open Doors, some of our outside clinics, that have helped with this. So it's really going to reach our young people, from very young to those that are in college, young adults struggling. So with that also comes Hope Squad, and I don't know if you're going to touch on that, or do you want me to?
I have some things that
I will let you. I'm so proud to work with her. She's amazing.
it all comes together, right? We can't do what we do without everyone united. And that's what's happening with this committee, to say the least. We have like 40 individuals now who want to be a part of it. And it's all about power of numbers, right? That's what does it. Just like our campaign, it doesn't matter what someone gives, every dollar counts. And that's how we get to where we're at. So Hope Squad It came to educated us when we brought Emma Benoit here, and some of you may have seen that over the last year and a half. Emma has been here several times. She's a survivor of a suicide attempt, a young woman who tried at 16, who had everything, and she thought her life wasn't worth living anymore. She didn't feel she was hitting the expectations she should have been hitting. And although that she would be one of those girls you look at in school and say, oh my gosh, she has everything. Everyone wants, looking at her like she has a clothes, she's a cheerleader, she's a model, her grades come very easily to her. But when she looked at herself in the mirror, she saw ugliness. She thought she's never gonna be good enough. And she always had to be at that level, she felt. Well, anyway, so she attempted, and she's now out there sharing her regret. And in that, she got connected to what's called Hope Squad. And this is something that, it's a peer-to-peer suicide prevention. I'm gonna share a little bit with you and what we're doing with that. So again, in Minnesota, 24% of the teens have considered suicide, and 8% have actually attempted, according to 2022 Minnesota Student Survey. Again, that's a very powerful number, right? Teens are often the first to know about suicide risks in friends, but tragically, many choose not to tell an adult. Hope Squad is a peer-to-peer suicide prevention program based in schools to reduce youth suicide through education, training, and peer intervention. Hope Squad is in over 1,600 schools across 34 states. Greater Mankato Area United Way worked with Mankato Area Public Schools again to implement Hope Squad in 2 junior highs and 2 senior high schools this fall. It just started in September. That's grades 6th through 12th. This program has been well received, and Greater Mankato Area United Way is looking to expand to other schools in our service area that are interested in Hope Squad, and we're looking at right now possibly Waseca Public Schools, Janesville, and then probably one more beyond that.
And Lake Crystal also has it going.
Yes, they had it going right away. Yes, Lake Crystal did. So the goals of the Hope Squad are to create a safe school environment, promote connectiveness, support anti-bullying. We do have a committee now working on anti-bullying. It's my little bracelet here. Encourage mental wellness, reduce mental health stigma, and prevent substance misuse. And we also have a committee working on substance abuse advocacy, and we're really trying hard to reduce that. Evidence-based training is used to train staff and students in the schools. Students are nominated by their peers, by the way, identifying other students that are concerned about others, good at listening, easy to talk to, and someone that they could turn to if they needed a friend. And so it's peer-to-peer choosing. It's not anyone else nominating them. It's students nominating who they feel should be a part of that.
Or can I just interject on that too? I think a very important part in that nominating piece is that there are Hope Squad leaders. We all know, we've all been there in our school lives, that there are different groups, okay? And so this isn't a popular person nominating it. That's not what it is. We are making sure that every single type of group in a middle school or a high school is being represented. And things that many of us didn't even think about in our high school career, students that are trans, or students that are bisexual or whatever, okay? So please know that this isn't like a voting for a homecoming candidate or a student council, not at all. These are kids that other kids would go and talk to.
Thank you, Sandy. Students work through a curriculum that gives them the tools to learn to identify struggling peers and refer them to trusted adults. Not to diagnose at all. It's to be that ear and showing that they're there for them and they care about them and they're going to help them. Students are not expected to be trained professionals or do the job of school counselors, social workers, or therapists. Rather be the listening ear-to-ear peer, provide support when peers are struggling. So we started that. We actually got the funding right away. That was probably within 2 months. We had that done. And so then the advisors were picked from the schools, and that would be the teachers who would be involved, would be all different kinds of teachers and social workers. And so what they do is they are responsible to have interaction with the students that are going to be nominated now, and some have already been chosen and been implemented. But they're the guiders. They're the ones that when the students see someone of need, they rise that individual up to one of those advisors. And from there, the advisor gets connected to the social workers and the counselors in the schools and to outside resources, and also be part of probably that navigator position, getting connected to that. Let's see, West has already started. I just saw that. East is on its way to get the curriculum to the students trained to what they need to do. And then it's going, I believe the junior highs are already done.
Both middle schools have their students nominated.
Yep, and they started their program, so that means the curriculum, there's a whole year curriculum for them to do and how to learn and how to interact. They have Hope Squad t-shirts that they wear, they have a lanyard saying that that's who they are, and they're proud to share that. So kids can identify immediately of who they can go to. But I'm so proud of that because this is something that is going to expand, like we said, throughout the Fort County area, is very much needed. And District 77 listened and understood that that would needed to be there. And so that's a peer-to-peer, like we said, where kids are going to go to. Now, not all schools are doing that, right? There's a stigma for that. But thank goodness we have our pilot happening in this area too. So as soon as this pilot starts proving out, which it's already starting to, that's when we're going to be able to expand into other schools. And there was a child already, right? Yeah.
This is how powerful the need is and how good the system is. This Hope Squad actually began from a superintendent out in Utah who had a student, he lost a student, and then a second one, and he said, I am not going to lose another student in my district to suicide. And that's how this whole program evolved. But one of our advisors at Prairie Winds was wearing her lanyard, and it says Hope Squad on it. And so the kids have seen the information coming out. And one day a student walked up to her and said, hey, you have that Hope Squad, right? You're one of those advisors? And that person said, yes, I am. And that student said, well, I just had a friend talk to me about wanting to commit. And so that student felt comfortable to tell that person, just that lanyard was enough of identification. And the program hasn't even started yet. And we saved a life.
So as you're United Way, think of it as the holistic piece that we just talked about today. It's the beautiful programs that do the hands-on work. It's the initiatives we're wrapping our arms around, like we just shared 2 of them, which would be, again, the Youth Mental Health Navigator and then Hope Squad. Those are all pieces, and then the anti-bullying we're doing now, substance abuse disorder, sex trafficking prevention, you name it, we're at those issues that no one wants to talk about. And so we are going to continue to broaden and go that way.
So the anti-bullying, I need to tell you,
Oh,
because
yeah.
it was very cool. So we brought it, and this was for elementary students. And just to let you know how real it is, one of the people on our committee is the head of a preschool here in Mankato. And when we were talking about the anti-bullying, and that's one of the subcommittees that I'm on, she said, oh yeah, it starts in preschool. She had a little girl that was bullying another student, 4-year-old, okay? So we had this program, and it was called Karate Chop Bullying, and he goes all over the United States. He actually does have a business here in town, but that is not at all what it was. And students could come with their parents, and this was addressed to elementary. He did a fantastic job about teaching kids to stand up, say no, back off, and talked about just being positive, okay, and having confidence. He had a $50 bill that he crumpled up, and he said, do you still want it? The kids were like, yeah. And then he put a rip in it. He said, do you still want it? And the kids were like, yeah. And he said, well, why? It's ripped, it's crumpled, he stepped on it. And the kid said, well, it'll still spend for $50. Right, it still has worth. So even when we've been crumpled, torn, stepped on, we still have value. And that was his purpose in teaching these young kids. So, and then he even did a thing where they wrote some things that really bother them and how to get rid of them by, they just got to try a chop, and he showed them really neat ways to get away when you're in elementary school, because it tends to be more in elementary that's the physical. So I'm constantly pinching Barb, okay? Or I grab her arm. And a lot of this happens on the playground when teachers and staff aren't seeing it. We can't be everywhere. And he taught those kids how to safely move and get away. It was powerful. He even got Barb to do one of her moves at the end, and it was the kids, everybody cheered. It was a phenomenal night, and we hope to do more with that as well.
Okay, so that's a whole bunch of stuff in a short period of time. So questions? Yes.
I don't exactly understand this navigator and how the whole process works. As Patrick, the person you hired, he's a navigator, so he doesn't actually provide counseling himself. He kind of helps people get connected, and how does he get referrals to start with? And, you know, if I just don't know where he fits into the process.
Very good question. So the referrals come through teachers, counselors, social workers, coach. It could be any of those forms within the school system. Could be the janitor. Could be anyone that's seeing something that needs to be connected. They do not do the work, the therapist work at all. It's a case management piece. They find out what the needs are, and then they find out where they should be connected to outside, help the parent or guardian with the paperwork. What is it you need to do with your insurance? What are all the barriers that are out there that would stop you probably from going through with it because it is so difficult? It's to get the difficult part removed and make the access very easy. And so that's what the navigator's about. So all the social workers in school, the counselors are now doing even more of their hands-on work that they need to be doing, because then this other paperwork stuff's been removed from them taking their time, and now they have more time to see more children, which is what one of the outcomes we wanted to have.
They also, to piggyback off of that, there are sometimes that the parents weren't aware, and they, you know, because we saw it in school, but maybe the parent isn't seeing it at home.
I was gonna ask if sometimes parents either aren't aware or they deny that this could be happening, or?
From the group, from the results that we've had, there's only been a few parents that haven't seeked out and moved forward with it. But some are struggling themselves. And like we shared earlier, it's not the needy of the needy only. It's all levels of income out there that's struggling. And it's all levels of parents or guardians of education. It's a difficult system to get through. There's no doubt about it.
What about families that have difficulty with transportation?
So Patrick, he's the original one, but we know we have 4, so I'm just gonna say, the navigators, I should say, they do work on transportation. How do we get them to, now do they physically take them themselves? No. But they work on connections and how to get them to their appointments, yes.
If you were to be a person that would pick up a mother and child or whatever it happened to be, and you take them somewhere, is there a certain licensing, or are there
I don't think,
insurance paperwork? Or
that's what the school would determine all of that, so I don't have the answer to how that would happen. We could find that out, but I know I'm sure you can't just
No, there's a.
pick them up, yeah.
Pardon?
Yeah, there's a legal process and requirement for the
Okay.
district. Oftentimes, like Barb said, when they find the transportation, it might be, and that's where, again, funds come in, because we have like certain, we have Vine, there's, well, I think those 2 buses that pull up all the time
Yeah.
at school. They provide transportation to students, they are licensed there, and so it would be getting the funds and just making sure that, yep, we're gonna pick up that parent, and we would have those companies that work specifically for that.
Yes.
What role does, I was a teacher a long time ago, but what role does, I know in a lot of the school systems and budget negotiations and that, they cut out a lot of the counselors and whatnot, those positions. What role does that play in it?
So it doesn't have anything to do with the counselors or positions being cut by any means. And is this position gonna get cut? No, if that's what what you're asking.
Well, I know per capita and whatnot, those positions were cut a lot
Oh.
in various districts.
Actually, they've added now. They're coming back and they're having more, but also this particular area isn't being cut, isn't counted as a part of all of those other positions.
And the district has actually had counselors at both levels.
Yes,
I have a question regarding the student advocate work that you guys are talking about. So I've been a resident assistant, if you guys know what an RA is, I live in the dorms and I'm like
Yeah.
a student advocate for 3 years now. And I was wondering what it looks like for supporting those students who are working and being that advocate, because it can get very heavy for a student to do that work even with the training.
so what the support for the individuals that are
Yeah,
the students that have been identified.
like, yeah, to actually do that work for the students. To be
Yes,
advocates.
okay.
Yeah.
There is a training in that piece. There's a whole curriculum of what to do, how to train the students. That's why they're not gonna provide services. That's why they need to go to an advisor to get that, they're the pass-through and connection to make the adults aware that the student's even thinking that. And then the student that's been chosen by other students, like Sandy said, aren't doing any of the heavy work of it, and we don't want them to. That's not for them to do, but it's there to listen, give the hug, get them to wait that moment longer, right? 'Cause sometimes it's only a few seconds later, then they feel different about themselves, or maybe a minute or an hour, getting into the process, to prolong the thoughts that they're having. And then get them connected to the adults, the advisors who are trained then to take them on to the next steps.
Yeah, I totally understand that piece from a perspective of I've been doing this for years. Even when you have a student come to you and say, "Hi, I'm feeling this depression. I'm feeling suicidal." Even just having that, I understand, and here's a resource I can get you to. Even that can weigh heavily on a student. So I'm more so asking, what is their support system during that
Oh,
process?
you mean the kids that are Hope Squad?
Yes.
They get support from the advisors.
Okay.
And they go through a whole, training process and
And they
And
meet,
they do
twice a
like
week.
some team building activities and all of that, so that they are supported and boosted by.
yeah, they're not on their own. They're not at all. They're,
What if in an emergency situation where a college student goes up to an advisor and says, I just tried to hang myself and I'm gonna do it again right now. What do they do?
so the system has it for us. We're not in the college arena right now, so I couldn't answer that part about how that's all set up so differently than a school. But that's why we have our counselors and our social workers. They're the ones who are gonna do the same system that they've got beautifully set up right now for emergency things like that. They're connected right to that.
Immediate
Yes,
action.
yes.
But I will say that I hope that, as being an RA, because I was a CF when I went to
Yeah.
CASAS, which is the same thing.
Yes.
I would hope that you guys have that mobile crisis made, because,
We do.
good, because there's no barrier, and that would be one of those where I would dial that number ASAP.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's brought up to the next level. It needs to take care of the professionals that know what to do and the systems we got in place. They're the ones who embrace it, not that student. Yeah, if you want to learn more about Hope Spy, you can Google that. Just like Sandy said, it's easy to locate, and maybe it should be in. We should look at doing it in the colleges and stuff too, for those areas. Happy to have you come along. We have a subcommittee that's working on Hope Squad and how we're going to expand it. So we'd love to have you come on board. We meet every 2 weeks. We've decided that we've accomplished so much by doing that versus meeting quarterly. The issues are very strong and needed, and so we are gathering everyone every 2 weeks on Mondays, and it's at noon to 1. Bob.
Barb, I'm really impressed with how you generated all of the non-budget funding for these new programs and positions. Can you tell us about that process and the reception that you got out in the community? Who stepped up to provide those funds?
Sure. For the Navigator one, we're still looking for funds. We want to have it funded out 5 years from now in the Fort County area. But we were so blessed to have local resources help us with that. And so we have the counties coming forward. We have the cities coming forward. They have opioid money that they've been given. And drugs is a part of suicide, right? Drugs is a part of all of that, trying to relieve your brain from the hurting that's going on. And so they've taken some of their opioid money and donated that to this cause all the way through for 5 years. Now, it doesn't cover all of it, but it's adding up to that. Additional dollars is given to United Way directly to do that. We have individuals who are giving funding to make that happen. And again, that's a 4-county area that's stepping forward. Like I said, the different counties are coming forward along with the cities and the dollars that they have. So for Hope Squad right now, we have the first year covered for District 77. We're working on the second year, but we also are looking for dollars to go into the surrounding area schools. And so that is actually right now, the donors for that are parents who have lost their child by death by suicide. And so there's a lot of parents coming forward that immediately do it. Now, Lake Crystal, like Sandy said, as soon as we did our Zoom meeting with what we call Hope Squad, with the committees that have been working on that throughout the United States, we had 2 teens that came along with one of their teachers that they wanted to be an advisor. They heard about it with Emma, like I said, the suicide survivor, sharing about Hope Squad. And they started Hope Squad within a month after they heard about it last spring. So it's moving fast. So it's really about community members like yourselves coming forward and supporting and bringing the dollars forward.
So a year of Hope Squad in Mankato would cost how much?
The first year is $30,000, and that's 10 elementary, and then you have your junior high, senior high.
2 middle schools and 3 high schools, central, east, and west.
Yeah, so it's all junior high and senior high, so that would be about 30,000.
And the training is, it's very intense, but it's very good. And if you go to the Hope Squad website, the material that they are provided is just amazing. I mean, the curriculum is just, it is so there, it's so real, it's so genuine. And I have to just say that, as a teacher, I would come and we'd get our United Way thing each year, because the district has always been very important in it, and I would always like, oh, yep, we'll make sure we donate to that. And I have to say that until I got onto this main committee and then into the subcommittees, that I just was like, oh my gosh, I should have been giving twice as much. And I'm not saying that as a plug to any of you, I'm just saying it as a reality check to me, that, wow, and it hit hard with me just coming here, because I saw a line forming, waiting for the food shelf to open, just 3 blocks away from us. And I just went, wow. So, and Barb is very amazing in the power and the organization, that she just gets the right people going at the right time. And it takes a team. We are united. It's not just one person.
Most definitely.
And so many volunteers, so even if you have time to give, it's
So right now with Emma coming and showing her My Ascension, her journey is over 10,000 students have been connected to services within our 4-county area within a year.
And I wish we could have shown you the line, because Emma doesn't just come and present. She will talk to the kids afterwards. And at the middle schools, for example, we had a line, the principals just said, yep, no, we'll just stay here until it's done. The other kids were dismissed, and there were, at one of the middle schools alone, I know that there were 25 kids waiting in line, and Emma talked to each one of them, one-on-one, for as much time as they needed, just asking for questions.
And they're breaking down all at a severe point in their lives. So the second year for Hope Squad, I'll go into that, is $24,000 for all the schools, because now I don't have all the training and all that upfront cost is done. So that's what that is. And then if you're gonna go to the regional areas, it's much less than that, because there's not so many schools, right? So you break it down into a lesser dollar amount, and I can share that if you're more interested in what that would be for helping, like, the other surrounding schools get it.
And thank you for supporting United Way.
Yes, thank you so much.
I have a question about that parent hub. Does anybody have access to that, or is that
You
just
will.
for parents? So that would be
Yes.
Okay.
That's why it's created, because there isn't ones we're hearing over and over. The committee was, where do I go? I go here, and there's so much stuff that doesn't pop up to tell me, like, help now. Like, I need to know right this moment. I can't be digging through all this to try to figure out what do I do in my situation. So it has a 988 number, and then it also has a Horizon number, which is what Sandy was referring to. Other numbers that are immediate, they're right there to help that parent guide them through, and then some other resources on there. So yes, it's for
To
everyone.
answer your question, you're gonna be able to go to the United Way website, and there's gonna be a link right to it, so even if you're just, you wanna see it, you wanna, you know, be able to share it with other people, maybe you have talked to somebody who is like, I don't know what to do, you can say, oh, you know what, I heard about this website, and I'm gonna tell you that the work on it has been in depth, this isn't just thrown together.
Yes.
You talked a little bit about kids not wanting to go to school. You used that as an example because of the anxiety. Have you seen with the Navigator getting hooked up with services for kids, has the school districts that you're using the Navigator in, have they seen an increase in school attendance for those?
They have, and I don't have the exact number, but a couple of the stories that Patrick, who's been doing it the longest, has shared, is that there is a lot to do with anxiety. It's coming in, like the tests that they're having to take maybe, or they don't have their paper done, so they're taking it really heavily, or they're, now, unfortunately, with these devices, they're great for us to communicate, but they're also very horribly negative for children. And so lots of the pressures are coming at them, and they don't want to come, and they just don't feel it, again, like their life is worth living, and there's no hope for them. And as soon as they start getting connected to the outside resources, they have now started going to school. He has some wonderful stories to share in regards to that. Now they're confident, they've gotten the support, beginning support that they need. They'll continue to get more support, but they understand how to think of that, what it is, the challenges that are coming at them. Yes.
She helped explain a question that I had, that when, if a parent, say one of the college students says, and my dad just called and told me he's gonna commit suicide, what do I do? So in an immediate situation, if they can't find right away one of these individuals, what can be
Call
done?
988. That's a suicide hotline, 988.
National.
It's a national line that they're right there to help them through it.
And the kids know that.
Well, we're getting it out there. So that's a part of this hub too. There's, like we said, the stigma that's out there. There's not a central spot for information. We are doing what we can do locally, but it's out there all over nationally. It's just making sure people know. Because you were in that situation.
You don't have time to look.
No, but those magnets that Sandy talked about are different ways that you know if you're in charge of, like you said, the areas that you're responsible with students, have that listed. And then the colleges, I'm sure, have their information.
And I think the other thing I'd just like to share is, I really like the proactive, because many of the things we tend to be reactive, like the problem's already there. So that's why the anti-bullying has really become a big thing, because we need to get to, and that's one thing I went and met with some of the district officials as a retired teacher and just said, you know, here's what I'm asking you. You know, these devices need to be put away during the day. Kids don't need to be them. I don't need Barb to text me and tell me, because it's so easy to make a bullying comment. And so, or you snap a picture of me and you make a TikTok of me that makes fun of me, and it goes out to 30 people, you know? And so I'm proud to say that our middle schools, the phones are in the lockers from start of the day to end of the day. I'm not sure what the high schools went with, but our anti-bullying is working on the proactive, how to handle the situation, how to walk away, how to feel good about yourself.
So all that is that upstream I shared earlier. How do you get to the cause of the cause? And we have to keep going up to make sure we're stopping the funnel breaking open like it is, and hundreds and hundreds of more falling into it.
Got time for one more question.
I have a couple of picky ones.
Sure.
So the navigators are paid enough that you're gonna get stability? They're not gonna be turning over every 6 months?
Well, it's a really good question, because everyone sees that differently, right? In all jobs. And so I've just experienced that at United Way, where dollars were power versus what they're doing, right? So no matter what that answer, there isn't a solid answer for that. But I would say who we have to date are in it for the right reason, and it's about the mission. And that's with any job. If you truly are committed to what it is you're doing, it fills your heart, you will continue to stay. So I would say from what we've learned from the district, and they're the ones who put the dollar amount on it, and what that position should be at, is where we're at. And I truly believe it is a really good number to keep them there. But again, it has to be in their heart that they get the fulfillment that
It's
they
gonna
need.
be much more effective if you've got some stability there.
Yes, and so that's, actually we have, the school district is the fiscal host for these positions.
Oh,
And
okay.
then this, the Southern, SCSC is also the fiscal host for the rural ones. And all the schools have a place for those navigators to be and to house, and so they can interact with all the teachers, counselors, coaches, and everyone that they need to. So there's a united, as Sandy would say, front on this, that we're all together. So I didn't share that earlier, and I should have shared that. Besides all the other dollars coming in, we're very invested within the schools. We're very fortunate that our schools care like they do and understand these are the need that they have, and they're being very collaborative and making sure they're saving more lives.
And the portal is going to be simple enough that if people don't know the right words, they can still figure out how to get help?
Yes.
Yes.
We were extremely concerned about verbiage, so
Yeah.
whether you have a GED from high school, or you are as we said, you have your PhD, you're going to be able to operate it, and also cross cultures.
Last question, crisis team will deal with adolescents and kids as well as adults, because the crisis center doesn't, but the crisis team will.
They'll know. And then Horizon that's here is at crisis part 2 for kids too.
Right, but they don't have beds for kids, but they will provide services in terms of the crisis team. Okay, thank you.
For individuals like me that have limited mobility, are there things that we can do, like, just to plant a seed and, like, could we go to preschools or kindergartens, and I know there are books that are available that kind of gently cover certain topics like that we could just go and read them a story?
And it's up to the school district. I know they have, I believe, reading times and
Yeah,
preschool.
you could contact the district in terms of being a volunteer reader, because they do have those, and the preschools, same thing.
Yeah.
I think that we have a preschool representative on our large group committee and on our anti-bullying, and so I know that, they're working really hard with their curriculums.
If I were to give you my email, are you able to provide out like the names and emails or contact names within those?
Well, we'd connect you right to the preschool person or the schools, because the schools are gonna decide what can be shared with the students. They have to approve all that.
So you would connect us with whoever the person is
And
in
there's
this?
a background check you have to do, and
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we could get you connected to, I suppose, be a counselor, I suppose, what we do.
Okay.
Yeah, and they have, of course, and again, I thank the District 77 to be the pilot leader for the navigator position. And now, like you said, it went from 1 to 4, and it's all 4 counties now. How exciting is that? That we're touching all lives, and like we said, how many have already been touched so far within 1 month? And that's getting it up and running and being available. And also for District 77 again now, to be the pilot for the Hope Squad. And we're hoping to broaden that out really rapidly and fast as soon as we start seeing the results. And again, it's the outcomes that make a difference, right? And it's all about, for us, saving and improving lives. So we're very fortunate to have the schools that we do.
And like Crystal Welcome Memorial, their district has.
Yes,
placed those.
did it right away.
So Barb and Sandy, we want to thank you for sharing your time, your knowledge, and your passion for this topic. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for asking us.